Hello, everyone. This is your host, Deborah Poneman, and your Life Without Limits, where we share with our listeners knowledge and tools for shifting consciousness and reaching our highest potential. And I'd like to welcome you to our call with today's guest, Rudy Hunter, who will be speaking to us about energy healing tools that you can use right now. Rudy is an energy healer whose powerful healing techniques have changed the lives of not only people, but animals of all kinds as well. Rudy started out as a professional dancer and magician until a back injury derailed his life's plan and inspired him to become a bodywork expert and teacher in an effort to learn all he could to help fix his own back, and then went on to help his friends and then clients. He also has trained many massage therapists, acupuncturists, chiropractors, in fact, body workers of all sorts, and even lay people in his healing modality. Working with individuals in person for many years, he discovered that he was more effective doing distance work, using his voice as a way to access the client's energetic system. Rudy works with clients from Canada, England, Japan, Australia, all over the English-speaking world, helping them to get back on track and out of physical and emotional pain. His work is fast, focused, and highly compassionate. And today you will discover how you've been sitting on your own gifts and talents, how you can use your energy to clear up unwanted situations for yourself, your family, and your pets. I'm really looking forward to that. How to instantly release trauma fields and old bad memories which drain your energy. Also some instant energetic tools to learn how to manipulate your energy for better results. And we will experience not one, but a few energy clearings performed by Rudy during this call. Wow. Sounds like something everyone's going to want to stick around for. So, Rudy, thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the call.
Hi, Deborah. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm so looking forward to this call, not only for myself, but if I could get these pets under control, I will be really happy. I mean, not control, but you know.
You have an out-of-control Noah's Ark happening by the sounds of it.
I really, really do. And it's just a Noah's Ark of one. It seems like there's 10 of them. Actually, we had 2, but one of our little doggies went to heaven. But anyway, I am so glad you're here. And I would love for you to take a couple minutes to share a little about your journey. I know there was the back injury. I know you were a dancer, but maybe fill in a little bit more for everybody. We'd love to hear everything about you.
Well, thanks. I think I'm probably the most surprised person that I ended up doing the work that I'm doing. After my back injury, I'm a pretty good study, so I became really good with the physical part of fixing stuff in bodies, my own body and animals' bodies, clients' bodies. I was good with tendons and muscles and nerves and joints, and I thought that was going to be it for me. It was very, very satisfying work. Loved it dearly. Still love it. I still study bodywork charts to relax, which tells you how crazy I am. But what I discovered was that there were people who, in my way of thinking, were completely out of their mind, who did this long distance stuff, and I thought they were just crazy. I thought they were self-deluded and nuts, and God being a God of irony, that's my number one rule of the universe, I came across the path of some profoundly fabulous, deeply crazy people who it turns out were not so crazy after all. They could work on bodies in the same way that I worked on a body, but they could do it at a distance. I saw a woman adjust a cow at a distance, which to this day still flips me out. And I saw people do remote or long-distance work and get really fast, very deep, very profound results. And the old magician in me to this day, can't help thinking that that's the best magic trick on the planet, especially because it works. So very, very begrudgingly, very skeptically, to this day, very skeptically, I started dipping my toe in this territory of, well, what if I didn't work with people face to face, body to body? And where I live in the woods, sometimes you have to work on a llama or a dog or a cat or a possum or whatever animal it is, and you can't get to them. They're either stuck or they're too far away or something's in the way. So I had lots of practice in doing work remotely and found that over the course of time it was easier for me. The results were quicker, they lasted longer, they were deeper, and the transformations were just more complete. And that, to this day, that surprises me more than anything else. And that's where my study went. I sort of did it backwards. I discovered that I was good at doing it and didn't really fully know or understand what I'm doing or what I was doing. So I started to pay very, very, very close attention when I worked as to what the mechanics were, because it's not just me that can do this. I mean, on this call, we're going to do stuff together. We're going to learn some tools that everybody can grab hold of and use. But it's the paying attention of the mechanics that really is most useful. So that's sort of the long, backwards, skeptical stumble into today's work.
Well, I love your story because you, like you say, you surprised yourself. So you really stumbled upon it. And to me, that kind of expresses a purity about what you do and an innocence about what you do, and also more being of an open vessel. And I get that from you for sure. And one of the things you kind of snuck in there, you said, I worked on animals and plants. Did you say plants or did I hallucinate?
No, but I worked on plants too. Ironically, I can't keep a plant in the house, which, is very bad if you're a healer. But I work on plants and trees, and they do just fine. They're very receptive.
Wow. Okay. That is just phenomenal. And the other thing that I love about what you say is that each and every one of us has been sitting on our own gifts and talents. I'm sure that everyone wants to stop sitting and get up. Tell us what that means, that we're sitting on our own gifts and talents.
Well, that means that we are, I'm not particularly special. I might be a snappy dresser and a decent dancer, but I'm no more special than anybody else. I'm very good at paying attention to what's already hardwired into me and into everybody else. So we'll do a thing in a moment where there's a whole energetic wiring or circuitry, or however you want to think of it or conceptualize it, that we've had since we were born. And until and unless someone says, try this, try this, try this, and gives us some instructions, it's like carrying around jewels that we have no idea are with us. These are useful, endlessly operating principles in who we are, and when we use them, it's very exciting, but we have to be taught or instructed on how to do that.
Well, you are talking my language, because I totally believe that circuitry is there, but so far in myself and many people I know, we have not figured out quite how to turn it on. So do you want to start right out and tell us how we can use our energy to clear up these situations for ourselves and our families too?
Yeah. I have a very short attention span, which I think has come to serve me over time. I want to get right to it. So here's what I'd like everybody on the call to do, and just one little caution before we do any of this work. If anybody who's listening to the call has somehow managed, using technology, to be driving while they're listening, please don't do these processes while you're driving or while you're engaged in something that needs your full attention. Pull over, take a break, and do these processes when you can relax, because we don't want to create anything that puts you in jeopardy. That's the opposite of what the point of this is. We could start anywhere, but here's one first piece. I'd like everyone on the call to think of something that is a bother. Now, just for starters, you can come back and listen to this on the replay with a bigger problem. Don't pick the largest problem of your adult life, just for starters. You can do that later. Just pick something that's bothering you. That could be your brother-in-law. It could be the fact that you have to go to the store later, something in the nuisance or bothersome category. And the reason for that is so that you can notice a difference when we do this work. I'd like you to make a label for it out in front of your face or your head. So a label that says, pain in the bum, brother-in-law, or have to go shopping, hate it, or kids are driving me crazy, or boss is being difficult, whatever the label is. That's just a place for you to focus your attention while we do the energetics I'm going to talk everybody through. And before we start, it's always a good idea to rate the discomfort of this. 10 is, take me to the mental ward in the hospital, I've had enough, and I'm going insane. And 0 is, it doesn't bother me anymore. So for starters, just pick a number for yourself so that you know what your starting intensity is, because the idea is that when we're done, when the number starts dropping, you'll be able to notice that something happened. So with all that set up, we're going to do something really simple, and I'd just like you to follow along. Allow your eyes to close, and then have an awareness of that label of the bothersome thing out in front of you. It is as bothersome as it is in this moment. And we're going to do some things inside your body using your imagination that will just help with things. So I'd like you to imagine that you're pulling from the inside, your ears closed. Now don't make that difficult. Just perhaps imagine you're in a cartoon. And from the inside, your ears pull closed. And then just as easily imagine that behind your closed eyes, your eyes pull more into the center of your head where your ears are. I know it's weird. And keeping that pulled in, imagine yourself dropping down to your tush, to the bone that you sit on, which is your sacrum. That's the sacred bone in your body, for those of you that are interested. And I'd like you to put your attention at your tush, where that bone is. And I'm going to go silent for just a couple of seconds, and we're going to do a little work. Here we go. Okay, so you can open your eyes, pop your ears and eyes back out, let all of that go. You can let the label go. And just take a moment and notice what the level of that bothersome issue is now. It's either higher, the same, or lower. So just take a moment and actually notice. And Deborah, would you be our weather vane and tell us what it was for you?
What the situation was, or what the numbers were?
No, just the numbers. Just the numbers.
Well, it went from when I thought about it, I would like scrunch up my face, like, ugh, like that, to when I thought about it, I'm still not happy about it, but I so do not have the same reaction, like, you scrunch up my face, like, ugh, like I had before. It's like, I think about it, I think about it.
Cool. We're going to do one more piece here, but it's important for thank you for sharing, by the way. It's important for everybody to know that your personal experience won't necessarily match Deborah's. Your number may stay the same for the next few minutes. That's okay. It'll start dropping shortly. We call that the na-na-na-na-na-na clause. I just snuck that in. It will start dropping on its own. That's part of the fun of the energy work. And you may notice not much, or you may notice that it drops like a rock the very first time. Regardless of what happens, I want to do one more piece with everybody to show you something that you can use that's totally self-initiated. because I did a little woo-woo, as I like to call it, in that first piece. But I want this next round to be so that you don't need me, so that you can do this anytime you want. And it's almost the same. So here's what we do. Think about the same issue, even if it's not much left. Close your eyes. Pull your eyes in. I know that sounds crazy. Pull your ears in. And this time, instead of dropping to your tush, where I'll do work, drop just down to your heart. And here's the fun part. Imagine that you have a larger heart than you did just seconds ago. Just a slightly larger heart. That means a heart filled with more love, no matter what that means to you. And then take another moment. Imagine your heart is slightly larger still, filled with a little more love. And let's do that one more time for good measure. Slightly larger heart, filled with more love. Good. Then just take a breath, let all of that go, and then recheck your issue and notice what you notice. And by the way, whatever you notice can't be wrong. It's what you notice. And Deborah, would you tell us what that did for you?
Okay, this is very weird. Okay.
Welcome to my world.
Seriously, okay, but I'm going to have to tell people what the issue is, and it's such a true confession that people will be like, okay, I don't know if I can listen to this Your Life Without Limits woman anymore, but my issue was that when I came in the house, my little dog has a tendency to do his thing in not where he's supposed to. When I went in the house, there was an odor, and I couldn't locate where it was, but I had to run up to start this interview because obviously I couldn't start it late. And for the first part of the interview, I could smell the odor, and it was very annoying, and it made me really kind of upset with my dog. Why doesn't this dog learn to not, it's like, and I was cringing at the thought of, poo in my house. Mm-hmm. And the weird thing is the smell has left.
There you go.
Is that possible?
Absolutely. I'll tell you why it's possible. And what a great story too. Here's why it's possible. When we are at peace with what's happening, because in this work we don't really ever change the world. We know we can't change our brother-in-law. We know we can't change our boss. But when we alter our perspective, it's like the world spins around us and relocates itself so that everything flows much more easily. So sure.
Wow.
That's really cool.
That's pretty mind-blowing. Because I'm taking some deep breaths here, Rudy, and I cannot, and it was really not pleasant when I started out this interview. And
amazing.
It is, and somebody might think, oh, well, it's, over time, maybe, this not, I know my dog, believe me, until I find it and dispose of it. Well, it is a difference.
Here's one of the other pieces about this. In this interview, all of the energetic work that I'm doing is actually embedded into the interview itself. So folks can come back on the replay and replay the parts with the energy work on any issue they want. That's one of the things I'm happy to do for folks, because the more use you get out of these, the more you'll realize that they have a very broad reach. You can use them for anything.
Okay, so when you say that we can use our energy to clear up these unwanted situations, obviously we just saw an amazing demonstration of that. So what you're saying is that we can go through those steps where we see, the words of the issue, and we pull in our eyes, the mm-hmm. ears and just go and expand our heart. Is that what we do?
You can certainly use any of these techniques on your own. And if you just want to follow along and work on a bunch of stuff, that's a highly technical term, by the way. If you have things you want to clear up, you just listen to the interview again and do the energetic rounds on whatever is currently up for you. So if you, for example, want to work on a habit and an old pervasive emotion or difficulty you're having at work, you can just plug those in as we do the different energetic rounds, and you can maximize your use of it.
Very good. And when you say that we can clear up unwanted situations, there's even methods on animals. Is it that we do what we just did thinking of our problem with our animal?
That's a great question. Yes. And let me make that, you said it beautifully, but I want to say it again because some folks have a logical disconnect. They go, well, if I'm sort of working on behalf of the animal, how does that work? Well, the answer is we don't have a good answer for that. But the truth of it is that you can work on behalf of your animal, you can work on behalf of your child, you can work on behalf of someone who's ill or infirmed, and what flows through you flows through them. So I'd like to tell folks that even though this is fancy schmancy energetic work, fundamentally it's a form of intercessory prayer. So it's praying on your own behalf, but also praying on the behalf of someone who needs your help. And that's always the case with animals. They rely on us to be guardian and guide.
Okay, what's that word? Intercessory?
Intercessory. We intercede on behalf of someone who needs help. Yeah.
Thank you. I learned a new word today.
Yay.
Thank you. So I understand that is excellent. Now, let's talk about bigger issues like releasing really large traumas or entrenched memories from our childhood. I mean, these things that,
Sure.
I mean, there are people who have memories from childhood, things that happened or they think happened that completely run their life. Can you work with issues like that?
Sure can. I happen to come from that very background, and I can tell you the full weight and force of what trauma fields, what are called trauma fields or traumatic experiences that stay locked in your energetic system, how they can affect your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual life until they're released. Now, a couple of caveats, because we're going to do this for folks. The caveats are, first of all, it's way easier than anyone thinks, which is the good news in all of this. We will, when we do this process, and I'll do it on behalf of everyone. I do a lot of trauma release work for folks. It's very simple. It's also very short, which surprises a lot of people, especially if they've carried around a big bucket of yuck for 30 years, 50 years.
You really do use technical terms, I have to say.
I do. It's because I watch too many cartoons, I think is the truth. So if you've been carrying around all this stuff, the other piece of good news is that you can quickly release it. Here's the temptation of the mind that I want to steer folks away from. Whether you've had actual traumatic events or perceived traumatic events, in my book they're the same thing. They have the same emotional charge. I strongly, strongly, strongly urge you to not go poking in that pile. And here's why. You don't need to. That's fundamentally that's the most important reason. And then the other reason is that you run the potential to re-traumatize yourself by reliving an event. The reliving is not only not necessary, it's a form of cruelty that it's one of the reasons I do the work that I do. I swore to myself if I ever managed to clean up the traumatic suffering that I had been through, I would make this as easy as pie for people. Because there's no reason to go relive it. Even though the mind tempts us by saying, oh, we should go understand this. No, we should find a way to quickly let it go and move on with our happy life. That's my bias anyway. So let's talk about a trauma field. There are sort of well-recognized obvious traumas like car accidents, horrible sudden deaths in the family, things falling from the sky and hitting you on the head. Those are sort of well-recognized traumas. The much more pervasive poisonous traumas are living in environments where there's a feeling of threat, and that can be sexual threat, physical threat, mental threat, emotional threat. If you talk to someone, and we all know folks like this, who were raised in a place where they felt unsafe or unloved, or there was a constant threat of being either criticized or hit or hurt, these folks have a very hard time living a fully expressed life, or even just a happy life, because that trauma still has effect on them today. It's still part of their experience, still part of their wiring. So the good news in all of that is that in just a second, we're going to run a trauma release piece that I do a lot for folks, and you'll make great headway. You won't make a little headway. You'll make great headway. And I don't say that because I'm any particular genius, but I know this particular piece from the inside out, having lived it, having moved through it, and then spent, 30 odd years or so helping other folks move through it. It's very important. Well, that's a big send up, isn't it? So.
Very, and I just had that thought that of somebody, another category of people that this could be very useful for. I was just this morning talking to a friend, an adult friend, but who escaped from a war zone and came to this country, and it just runs her. Her early childhood just runs her. She feels like she's still running.
Absolutely. Yeah, I quietly do a lot of work with vets with post-traumatic stress issues that are very real and very, very pronounced. And it's the same thing. There's a big boogeyman, which is, it's unfair to call it a boogeyman, but fundamentally in our nervous system, that's what it is. And we're still running from it. So,
okay,
let's do the yummy work. So here's the setup for this. It's important that you don't pick every trauma you've ever suffered with the expectation that it's going to be cleared up in the next 2 minutes. I don't want a lump of things for you to focus on. I want you to pick one specific trauma without going back to relive it. And the easiest way to do that is I always tell folks to think about the time and then freeze it as a black and white, non-moving picture postcard. So it's not interactive. You can't jump in and roll around in it. You can't relive it. It's just a picture memory in boring old black and white that doesn't move or engage you. So your entire function during this, aside from noticing how awful the memory of the trauma is it an 8, a 5, a 2, however high it is, your whole function during the time I'm going to do something crazy in a second is to just look at the picture postcard without trying to fix or change it for the next couple of minutes. All right? During that time, I'm going to mumble some incoherent stuff that's relatively meaningless, and then we'll come back after I finish mumbling and we'll check. All right? So I'll give everybody a second. Construct your black and white non-moving picture postcard of a single traumatic event. Resist the temptation to jump back in and roll around in it. You're going to look at it without trying to fix it for a minute while I mumble. Here we go. Okay, so take an easy breath, let the picture postcard go, and just take a moment after you've reoriented yourself to just notice whatever you notice. And whatever you notice is fine. And Deborah, can we lean on you to just tell us how you did during this?
First of all, whatever you did, I just felt an energetic shift, picture or not, something definitely shifted in my, physiology, both gross and subtle. So that felt really great. What happened to me was that the postcard picture of the event went from being in, you said black and white, but it was living color when I couldn't get the colors out of it. And it was vivid and right there, and now it's like further away.
Yes.
And black and white. It's like it's losing its vividness.
Right. Literally and metaphorically losing its power. That's really what this process does. That's a beautiful description. So thank you. One more piece about this. Your experience for everybody on the call won't necessarily be Deborah's, but I can tell you from having done this for an awfully long period of time that there will be something different about your perception of this event. Now, we're not done. I want to do another round to make sure I like to do my work so that we're done, and done. I want it done.
And done.
So we're going to do exactly the same thing again. We'll go for a shorter period of time. Here's what I want you to do. Please use the same memory, even if it's already dropped to a 0. This is what I call vacuuming around the edges. We want to make sure that all of the connections to your nervous system are disconnected so that it can float free, be taken by the 4 winds, and taken far, far away. All right? So black and white, non-moving, same memory. Don't try and fix it. Here we go. Okay, so bring your attention back. Let all of the specifics go, and do the same thing. Just reorient yourself to here and now. Take a moment and notice what you notice about what was or is left and what's changed. And Deborah, would you tell us?
Yes. So what's happened to me now is that when I try to bring the image back in, it's uncomfortable. I used to be able to, I could see it in an instant. Now, when I try to bring it back in, it's a strain. It almost gives me head pressure to even try to bring it back in.
Good. That's wonderful.
And
so my suggestion is don't try.
Yeah, right. And it's just like it's so far. It's just like mixed in with all other kinds of good, bad, whatever memories. It's just like off in the distance instead of I could think of it any time and feel that pain again.
Wonderful. I had a great bodywork teacher I was very fortunate to study with before he died, and he said pain is like a terrible neighbor. When they move away, we never go looking for them. So one other thing about this, the energetics for this trauma release are embedded in this call. So on the replay, you can come back to this area. You can, if there's any residual that doesn't fade within the next few minutes for you, you can re-listen to it until you know that you're done. And it's very obvious when you're done. There's a voice in your head, probably using my voice, that will say, "Oh, yep, I'm done." Mm-hmm. You can also use these sequences for any single traumatic memory. And if you're super keen, like I tend to be, and if you're gonna do that for yourself, my strong suggestion is to make sure you still go one at a time, and to maximize your use of it, pick the next ugliest trauma, the one that has the most around it for you, because as the big ones start to topple, your nervous system actually will generalize that pattern into itself, and you'll find a lot of the lesser traumas just resolve themselves automatically. So it's a nice way to get a big bang for the buck.
Very nice. Well, if you could really teach these techniques to other practitioners to use for their patients, clients, this seems like a lovely way to put psychiatrists, psychologists out of business.
I know they don't like me very much.
I could see why they wouldn't, because
Sorry,
this works. Yes. Well, okay, so now let me ask you another question. What about people who are experiencing a very present time heartbreak or heartache?
Oh, yeah, heartbreak's a tough one. Well, as tough as anything else. So you're here in this moment, and there are a whole bunch of things going on with heartbreak that are really particular. It's a very particular set of energetic sensations. The big piece that holds it together is the constant revisitation to the past. And that happens in milliseconds. You've just broken up with somebody, or someone's just left and called you bad names. And there is a constant revisitation in the head and the mind that goes back to the way things were, the way things should have been. So there's a lot of projection back into the past, which checks you out completely from the now. And we all know that. We've seen people who've been heartbroken who are non-functional at work and non-functional in their life. They sit on the couch and they cry. So I have a little advice first, and then I'll teach you some energetics, because energetics around the heart are particularly useful. My advice is cry. Oh, I'm such a genius. But I teach people to cry in a particular way that's really useful. And here's what it is. You go to, well, you can't go to the video store anymore. They don't exist. But you get a copy of Dark Victory by Bette Davis. It's a horribly depressing movie about a woman slowly going blind. Beautifully acted and gut-wrenching. So you get a copy of that. You go buy several tubs of ice cream. You go buy lots of tissues. And then you go home and you close all of the drapes and turn off the phone. Very important. And then you watch the movie, cry your eyes out, eat the ice cream to self-soothe yourself, and you cry and you cry and you cry. And here's the important part, until you are done. That's something that we do not do. So if you will cry until you're done, you can then turn off the movie, throw away the empty ice cream containers, open up the blinds and the door and the windows, and come back into the world ready to actually move past that point. Because it's a very big sticking point when our heart gets hurt. So that's the practical piece of advice. And for those folks who are suffering heartbreak, if you'll actually do it, you'll notice that 80% of the burden gets lifted from just doing those real-world steps. So let's do the other 20% of what happens in our heart. So we're going to do a little imagining together. So if you will, just allow your eyes to close. And I'm going to take you through a very simple thing that you do with your heart. Imagine that you easily and comfortably open up your chest wall and you take out your warm heart and you hold it in your hand. Imagine that your heart is like an oriental puzzle box. You push one quadrant and another moves. You slide this part over and another portion moves. And you know the exact sequence. You manipulate it until your heart totally unfurls between both hands into a long strand. And from that long strand, all of the dust and debris and all the schmutz that was trapped in there falls away and is carried away by the four winds. And then very deftly, very easily, you reconfigure the heart, lock it all into place, place it back into your chest, and close the chest safely and securely. Take a large, easy breath. And then open your eyes. So, Deborah, tell us what you noticed when we did that.
Well, first I have to say that when the first part when you said, you know, get the movie Dark Victory by Bette Davis, get the ice cream cry, I thought after you said that you were going to say just kidding.
Oh, you're so cute. Yeah, no.
And you never did.
It couldn't be more serious.
And then I got it. It's like, yeah. So that was that. And the other thing, when we did the with the heart and letting the schmutz out, another one of your wonderful technical terms, it was interesting for me because I'm not going through a heartache or a heartbreak or anything like that right now. So when you said, open it up and let the schmutz out, I thought, and then I saw the schmutz leaving and I saw that I had schmutz.
Right.
And it wasn't like a particular heartbreak, but there's stuff in everybody's heart.
For sure.
And it was really lovely to let it go.
Cool. So I wanted to tell folks that this is an old published technique I published a few years ago called the Holy Open Heart Technique, and it's just what we did. It's opening the heart in that specific way, and we get schmutz from sidelong glances. We get schmutz from strangers. We get schmutz from obligations and relatives and guilt and schedules and just living. Yeah. It just gets in there. Heartbreak is a much bigger oomph, but the little assaults to our heart every day or every week or a few times a month, they add up too. So I'm so glad that you noticed that you had stuff, because we all do.
Yeah, and it was surprising what I saw flying away. Like, oh, that's still there?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a way to reinvigorate yourself, and I don't know how long it takes, 30 seconds. I always tell people that the best place to go do this energy work is, if you have a dog, is while you're walking your dog. That's when I do most of mine. Or if you're in the midst of a crisis, or you're at work, or it's not convenient, you go to the bathroom. You lock yourself in a stall, and you go, okay, I'm going to do this for a minute or two, and I'm going to come out feeling cleaner, more open, more accessible.
Wow. Well, Rudy, you've given us so much, but because I am a glutton for this stuff, this is like not, of course, you would probably I think you call it stuff. I call it some exquisite techniques and knowledge. And I also know that you actually fix physical problems, like your own back problems. So do we have time to address that? Can you help us?
Absolutely, we do. Let's talk about pain. Pain's a really interesting thing. So I'll tell you, 80% of the work that I do with folks on physical stuff, 80% of that is dealing with the trapped, unexpressed, unacknowledged, emotional stuff that's in the way. And then when we get to that, either the last 20%, which is the physical, mechanical stuff, either fixes itself, which is very common, or only needs a little bit of tweaking for what we've already been doing for it, and it fixes, and or it usually stays fixed, which is the really good news, once the underlying emotional charge has been dissipated. So I want to teach folks a really interesting idea about pain. Now, I've been in pain, and the time you want to learn and understand this is not while you're in the throes of pain, because no one's going to listen to you anyway. They're going to call you names and make rude gestures at you, and pain is very distracting. And, well, everybody knows that pain can be very challenging. So here's the level and layer to go to, and we'll do some energetics in this too, because I want to embed as much as we can on the recording. But first, understand that every time you have pain, there is something that is desperately trying to get out of your system. And it has nothing to do with a sensation of physical pain. What's trying to leave is an emotion that you're scared of, usually, afraid to express, or in denial about. If you'll look at that level of your experience first, you'll have a very quick resolution to the pain. So let me give you an example. One of the things in North American culture that we are the most terrified of, like above and beyond terrified of, is anger. We in North America do anger really badly. We either do complete and total suppression, which is most of us, or we do over-the-top road rage in short bursts that frightens other people and frightens ourselves. There's no happy middle ground when it comes to anger that we're taught or that we ever learn. If you were very, very fortunate to be raised in a family that did anger okay, you're miles ahead of the rest of us. I'm English, so the English don't do anger, period. They stuff it and they drink it away, and they snide it away. But every culture has their own specialties. With anger, one of the fastest fixes for pain is to acknowledge out loud to yourself, not to anybody else, to acknowledge out loud what you're angry about. Now, I know that sounds way too simple. And guess what? It's way simple. However, getting us to acknowledge out loud with our own mouth how angry we are about something, especially if we're not supposed to be angry about it, is a monumental task. So here's a couple of ways to do it, and then we'll do some energetic work that you can grab hold of to help reduce pain very directly. A couple of quick and wonderful ways. If you're lucky enough to live in the woods, as I do, you can go out and yell and scream and complain and be angry out loud with your own mouth about all of the things that are making you angry. If you don't have that luxury, bathrooms rule, because you can lock yourself in the bathroom. You can take a loud boombox in there and turn it up really, really loud, and you can be angry out loud. It doesn't even have to be volume that does it. You can, if you're willing, say in even a measured tone what you're angry about out loud, and even that will start to unlock the pain suppression. So those are a couple of quick tips.
Wow. Okay.
So I want to do a little energetic piece here, because sometimes we need to just pull the pain down so we can even think long enough to go after the suppressed anger or the suppressed resentment, whatever it is. Sometimes pain is just in our face and it's everywhere. We've all been there. If you've ever had a toothache or a migraine, you know pain can be super distracting. So for this, I'm going to do a little work in everybody's energetic field. So if you don't have pain now, please don't make any. That's counterproductive. If you have pain or tension or tightness, pick a specific area in your body. Notice whether it's high, medium, low, whether it's an 8 or a 2. Just notice how challenging it is. And what I'll do for this is, if you'll put your attention on the area that feels uncomfortable, I'll go silent for a bit. We'll do some different energetics just to pull that down to a more manageable level. Okay? And I'll go silent for this. Here we go. Okay, take a nice easy breath, check the same place, and notice what you notice. If it's still high, you can come back and re-listen to this. If it's gone, groovy. If it's not quite gone, give it a couple of minutes, because it frequently drops on its own once we have the process started, because the work that I do is in the energetic field. And if it's not fully gone, revisit this section of the recording, and you can pull it down easily.
If somebody has a physical pain, but there's also a physiological manifestation that's a counterpart, like there is a arthritic joint or a tumor on their shoulder or something. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had the experience that the actual physiological manifestation goes away?
All the time. And the thing I'm going to say next is so outrageous and so backwards that many of the people listening will just think I started to lose my marbles and step on them. And that is, we have it backwards. We think that the trapped nerve in the shoulder is what's creating the pain. That's very seldom the case. The reverse order is usually what's happening, and what's giving it fire is what we're afraid to express or afraid to acknowledge. And I know that's a big, big stretch, but I can have my theory too.
Wow. Well, we could try your theory on and see how it works,
You can
other
indeed.
things haven't been working for most of us, so.
Well, that's the thing that we keep noticing, and it is so funny. We will keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting it to be different, and go, wow, this hasn't worked for anyone, and it's not working for me. I wonder why I'm so disappointed.
Yeah, right. And then we go through it again.
Yeah, of course, because we don't know what else to do. That's right.
Well, this is so fantastic, and you have given us, really above and beyond. And I know that our community here, Your Life Without Limits, we want more of Rudy Hunter, to be sure. And I have one last question, and that is,
sure.
Can you take a few minutes and share some of the amazing specific results that you've seen from people or even animals who have applied what you teach?
Oh, sure. I'd be happy to. One of my favorite stories is there was a horse, a lady wanted help with her horse who was throwing her and giving her great trouble. And because of scheduling mostly, I didn't really have a chance to work with the horse directly. So what I did was have her work with some of the audios that I produce. And in my mind, that was a stopgap measure to tide over the time until, a couple of days had passed so that we could work together. And before we could even work together, she said, oh yeah, horse is fine now. Total turnaround. So I picked my jaw up off the floor and went, oh, good. That's great. We did do some further work and got even better improvements, but I'm still always amazed that we can take the energetics, and it's often much easier with animals because they tend not to have a lot of conditioning like we do, but the energetics stand on their own. We can influence living bioorganisms with energetic work. I work with a lot of folks who have suffered years of very nasty, particularly nasty depression, and a lot of folks who have nasty things in their past. So one of the big breakthroughs with folks who've been on the same track for a long period of time is that the moment we start to engage the emotions they're not supposed to be feeling, it's like what we were just talking about. We don't have to solve it, which is great. We don't have to go through their whole life and deal with every emotion. We have to begin the process of finding out that it's safe to not only have an emotion, but to acknowledge what that is. We don't have to do anything with it either. But a lot of folks I've worked with long-standing depression, once we started that emotional work, just the beginning of it, the clouds literally part. The light is more accessible. And the depression keeps less and less and less of a hold on them until it's gone. And I have a particular soft spot I have lots of soft spots. That's the blessing and the curse of being a sensitive guy, I think. But for folks who've had particularly gnarly, nasty things in their childhood and, nasty abuse histories, from my perspective, having traveled through that and doing the work that I do today, what I always find remarkable is that it's not anywhere near as hard or as long or as slogging a process as it even used to be. I mean, 20 years ago, you used to have to go and dig up all the demons and hash it out and blah, blah, blah. It would take forever. And it would be fairly cruel in the process because you'd have to relive all these terrible things. Because we live in a very biased, loving universe, we have the option using the energy work. And I mean, you've heard it on this call. We did some trauma work. And that's to a great extent what I do with folks who have that history. We go back and we topple the big boogeymen. And as soon as they collapse, which is very quick, there's a new freedom because all the baggage that they've been carrying for all of these years that's affected every part of their life just drops away. Sometimes it can be a little over-startling because if you've carried something for so long, you go, oh, why do I feel so different? Well, it's because your arms aren't aching from carrying all of the rubbish around with you.
Well, I can't even imagine that there's a person listening that isn't saying, I want that. Really, no more rubbish. Drop it off at the dump.
Rubbish. Right.
Well, I'm very excited about helping people, and I know that there's so much more that you have to offer, and I know that you've created a special offer for everyone who's listening to this call. So I want to highly encourage everyone to go and take a look at Rudy's special offer and, of course, to experience it for yourself. And the URL is yourlifewithoutlimits.com/mend, MEND, yourlifewithoutlimits.com/mend. Rudy, can you let everyone know what they'll find there?
Sure, absolutely. I put together a package of audios in two groups. They're short ones and they're much longer ones. A couple of things I wanted to tell folks. If you do go ahead and get the offer, and I hope that you will, you can actually use these for the rest of your natural life. They don't actually wear out. They don't have a time limit on them. And you can come back to them and use them for whatever's up in your current experience. The other thing that I never counted on, that I learned from clients, is the clients told me after they've listened to my stuff for a while, if they play it around the house, or some of them even play it at work, I found out, with the volume turned down, they tell me that it's still powerful energetic work. So that even hurts my head to think of, but I've gotten that feedback from a lot of people. So in the package, I'll just go through them very briefly. There's a 14-minute long recording called Darkness Surrounds Me, which has to do with depression and sadness and gloom and fear. Not staying in it, but clearing it. The next one is called One Clear Moment, and that deals specifically with clarity and helping you get the cobwebs and the schmutz out of your brain, and that's done in about 7.5 minutes. The next short recording is called Heart Breath Dewdrops, and this is a deceptive MP3 in that the energetics are, if you think of pixies and fairies and light gentle winds, that's the nature of the energetics in this recording. But I've had people use this on the most grisly, nasty, sticky problems. So I encourage folks to experiment with what that's good for. It will actually surprise you. The next recording is called The Mother of Weather, which is an odd title. The Mother of Weather is actually wind. And this MP3 uses the energetics of ventilation to help you move feelings through your system really quickly. The next one's called Holding On. And if you've ever been told that you just need to let it go, and if you've ever wanted to stick a fork in your head when you heard that, this is a great recording because this actually leads you through what to do to let something go of that you need to let go of. And it's done in 8 minutes with no yelling. So I'm a big fan of no yelling. The next one is called At Sixes and Sevens, which probably dates me. That's an old expression of being betwixt and between periods in your life. So when you end a period in your life and you're about to start a new one, there's a very strong tendency for us to get stuck holding on to where we were or holding on before we start. And this will help you bridge that gap very gracefully. The next one is called Hollow. And it deals with the particular energetic state of feeling dead inside or drained and empty. This is an energetic map back. It's just follow along. These are all just follow along. And then there's called Pause and Play. It's PAWS and Play. And it's a reset MP3, very short one, six odd minutes, for your pooch, your kitty, your llama, your ferret, your duck, your goose, your horse, even your brother-in-law. So a lot of animal fans use this just as a wellness MP3 for their animals. So I've already gotten a ton of feedback about how effective it is. There are 3 more MP3s in this that have been available in other places. The first one's called the Middle Blade, and this is an energetic remedy if you've ever been betrayed. So it actually repairs the energetic field from the ripping that happens energetically from betrayal. The next is a client favorite and one of my most requested MP3s. It's called Walking the Charts. It is a totally non-business way to attract clients or friends or lovers or greater opportunities into your life. The cost of that, which folks sometimes just buy alone, is way more than even the package is. But I have all kinds of people and businesses in the world sending me stories about how well Walking the Charts works. There's also something called the MBC and Cash webinar replay. That's your personal copy of the audio and energetics in the Man Behind the Curtain and Cash webinar. And that's how the structure of money and getting some can be activated by you really simply. There's lots there. And that's the package.
Well, can I tell you that you had me at let it go? Because people say, oh, just let it go. Like, really?
Really, yeah.
You know, and then after you said what was in the main package, and I thought, oh, so he'll add on some nice, you said, oh, and there's some bonuses. Walking the charts, attracting clients, attracting money, filling in when you feel empty. These are the bonuses. This is just so sensational, Rudy. Really, I have to thank you from, deep within my heart for offering this, because we've already had a taste of how powerful this is, and now we get to have so much more. Absolutely. So exciting. I don't even know what to say. Really,
Makes me happy.
I can't wait. I can't wait to get it right away. I have a dear friend who actually is hospitalized right now. I know what I'm going to bring and play for her, for my doggy, for myself. I am wildly excited about this. Okay, enough about how excited I am. I know that we need to go, but I have 2 questions. So
sure.
In your experience, I mean, I almost don't have to ask this, but I like to ask this of my guests. What do you feel in general will be the quickest thing that we might experience right away and long-term benefits from making use of this amazing offer that you have given us?
Oh, sure. I specifically, based on feedback from folks, I specifically made a whole bunch of short MP3s that are part of this package so that you put them on your audio player or your iPod so that they're there when you need them and the energetics transfer just fine, so that you can grab and use either a title that grabs you, or you're running around living your busy life and something comes up and for example, you feel your system crash and you suddenly feel sad and gloomy for no reason. So you look through the titles, you go, oh, yep, going to do that one. Darkness surrounds me. That sounds like suddenly what happened. And within a few minutes, that will release. That's the very short-term effect of this is you take a problem to the energetics. I drive the bus, which I'm fond of saying. I drive the bus for the energetics for you. You follow along, and you'll find that it lifts. It frequently lifts the first time, and, so maybe it takes 2 times, big deal. That's a coffee break's worth of work, if you can call it work, of following along to have yourself restored and have all of those energetics dissipated. That's the short term. And then the longer term, I tell people not to overdo this. Here's why. You can't really overdo this, but you can get so keen on this that you move into fix mode. And having spent a lot of time there, I can tell you it's a little overrated. So here's what I tell folks to do. Use these if there's an imminent problem or challenge that comes up short term. And then longer term, be gentle with yourself. Use them when you feel led to, when you feel in the mood for it. Sometimes you'll want to spend an hour or two with me. Sometimes 3 minutes is great, and there's some days you won't want to hear my voice at all. So part of learning to be good to yourself is learning to trust when you need some support, and not being in chronic fix it mode, because there's nothing wrong with you. You may have some challenges, but you don't fundamentally need fixing. These are just support tools to make it easier.
Excellent. That is exactly what I wanted to know, and I thank you. And one more time, the URL for this really extraordinary offer from Rudy is yourlifewithoutlimits.com/mend, MEND. So before we sign off, any final thoughts you'd like to share with everyone before we go?
I have one piece of advice. Has served me and lots of other folks really well. If you'll make a conscious decision to be 5% more kind and loving and respectful to yourself today, you'll find over the course of time that that's really easy to do, and it pays huge dividends in every area of your life. So you can, in fact, incrementally be more kind, more loving, and more respectful of who you are.
Well, what a beautiful thought to leave us with. And I want to thank you so much for being with us today. This has been truly extraordinary.
Oh, my pleasure.
Will you come back again?
Anytime.
Okay, that's what we want to hear. So thank you. And thank you to everyone for spending this time with me and with Rudy Hunter. And I look forward to when we are all together again, and to you living your life without limits. This is Deborah Poneman. Have a wonderful rest of your day. 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 Have a wonderful rest of your day.